Phase 3 is the planning phase. In events, there's a very large portion of time that's dedicated to the planning, because this is where it becomes tricky. It is easy to organize 20 packets with lucky packets, one clown, one jumping castle, some snacks for the adults, and a time and an invitation for a 7-year-old party. That becomes hectic when you start organizing things like, imagine organizing the Olympics. I mean, the teams, the equipment, the space, for the World Cup we had here, they had to build stadiums. I mean, we have to look at what the country has to offer and uplift certain things like the high train, the extra stadiums, extra places to stay. It was so big. So the planning that goes into that is huge. It's not just 2 or 3 things we throw together. That's the one extreme. And the birthday party is the other end of the scale. But even down the middle, there's a lot of stuff we have to consider. So when it comes to the planning phase, we have to focus on reaching our objectives. There's nothing worse than going to a beautiful function, beautiful food, everything was perfect, but the client's needs were not met. Because then we failed. Because that's what we were paid to do. We were paid to meet the client's objectives. So we need to make sure that they're getting what they want. We call it a MWR, a most wanted response. Okay? The most wanted response when we are having a BMW launch to launch a new car. Yes, we want the people to have a good time. Yes, we want the image of BMW to look great. Yes, we want people to come to get feet through the showroom floor. But what's the most wanted response we want?
For them to buy the car.
Absolutely, we want to sell cars. So we need to set up the event so that we are assisting the salespeople in getting that job done. Then we have met our objectives. And so it goes. The details, we're going to go through and do Gantt charts. We're going to go into production schedules later on. It's hectic. And there's so many little things that you have to consider that there's quite an administrative side to event management. If you choose not to write it down, if you choose not to have checklists, not to do Gantt charts, somewhere along the line you're going to fall. Because one thing relies on another. Sometimes if we're building a carnival, they need 7 days to build a ride, like the Anaconda or whatever. So if they need 7 days to build the ride and 5 days before you realize you haven't organized it, that's it. That is what we call a cut in the event industry. That's a big, big problem. It's not a paper cut, it's not a small one, it's a cut. Because you haven't planned properly and you haven't looked at dates and times to make sure everything comes together at exactly the right time, perfectly. So the details is the little things. We need gifts for the people as they leave. We need drinks on arrival that need to look like this. We need performers. We need to organize venues. Very important. The first thing you don't do anything until you have a venue. Because if you send out the invitation and the venue hasn't been confirmed, can you imagine? Now you have to go back and say, I'm so sorry about that bogus invitation, but the venue's actually changed. It's just unprofessional. So we have to go and check out the venue. How are we going to seat people? How do we want them to dress? How are we going to dress? How much staff do we need? What day is it going to be on? Decor, which companies are we going to use? What kind of decor are we going to have? It is a list of things so very long. And you don't actually realize it until you start writing it down. So the details are very, very important in the planning process. We need to make sure that we have thought about everything. How I work, and it seems negative, but it's not really, is I look at what is going to happen, like my detailed, I want this performer, I want that. And then I look at each thing and I say, what could go wrong? So if it's an outside event, it could rain. And I actually look at things that could go wrong. It seems negative. But I almost provide a way to get through that before the event even starts. And if there's something there that I know I can't fix, then I try and change it so that I don't get stuck in that position where something can't happen. So you look at what you need to do, you think of things that could go wrong, and then you almost manage the things that can go wrong before they even start. So we've got the details. We have to remain within a budget. We get a budget from the client. The client says you may spend this much money. No event coordinator has the authority to say, oh, we'll have one of those, don't worry, the client will pay. As a company or as an individual, you lose money because you are responsible for choosing those things. The client has given you a budget. We have to respect that by remaining within the budget. What we normally do as well is we give a list of things to the client. We say, here's the quotation, these are the things we want to do, and we let the client sign off on that. So that there's a process where you're walking with your client towards his objective instead of you surprising him on the night with something that maybe you didn't even understand. So that process remains quite easy if we keep the client informed. We'll say, this is what you're getting, that's how much that costs, this is what's happening here. And at the end of the day, we're fitting within your budget. Is this what you want? Yes or no? The client says, I like that, let's change that. But you never take a risk of the budget. An open bar at a function, the people need to know, they need to come and tell you. Every 1,000 rand that strikes on the bar, they need to come and tell you so that you can tell the client. We've had events where people have spent 30,000 rand on the bar. You can't go to your clients at the end of the night and say, oh, by the way, the bar was 30,000. You have to communicate and speak to him throughout the whole time, the whole event. So we need to remain within the budget. Obviously, there's some variables and there's some things that are fixed, but we need to manage that. Checklists and running orders, I mentioned some of them now. You make sure that you've written everything down, that you check it often. It doesn't help writing it down and filing it. You need to check. Have I done this? Have I ordered the linen? Have I spoken to the people? Have I booked the staff? Have I done all these things? And I use my checklist constantly to make sure that I'm at the right time, at the right date. I'm not falling behind. I haven't missed any deadlines, and it's being done. When we do planning as well, we do reverse planning. Have you guys heard of reverse planning? You start off with the end. Okay, so you have a hot day tonight, and the end picture is that you want to look beautiful. You want to be well made up, want to wear a nice new outfit and a nice new perfume, and you want to be remembered. That's the end. So if we reverse plan to where we are now, we see, okay, there's certain things that need to happen. We need to go and get the new outfits. We need to go and get, or ask our friend to borrow the perfume or get new perfume. I need to go and have my hair done. I need to do all these things. And then you work it back. So it's the same with events. We've got this event that we want to do, and now we've got nothing. So we work it back on dates, times, to say these things need to happen at this time for us to reach our goal. For example, if we're looking at a timeline, let's say this is the event, and this is where we are now. Okay, this is today. So today, and this is the event. Let's write it in so that we're not confused. Okay, this is, let's say it's a 2-month period. So we want to send out invitations. When on this line, if this is our deadline, do we send out the invitation?
Like a month before?
It'll be in the beginning. Yeah, so it'll be a month before, because the first month will be used for your research, your design, getting all of that done. So let's say it's a month or so. But our invitation will be done closer to the beginning. Why don't we send out an invitation the day before the event?
Because we need people to RSVP.
Exactly, and we need them to plan their lives so that they can make an effort to come to the function. You can't tell someone the day before. So now we can see, okay, if this was 2 months, then this would be, say, a month and a half before the function. So if we want those invitations handed out, we have to consider when we're going to have them printed. So very good, that's what we used the first half a month for, was the design, printing the invitation, having them packaged, arranging for them to be delivered. Now the invitations go out. And that's how it goes. So here we need to book the artist. There we need to book all kinds of things. Closer to the end, on our deadline, on the day, we've got a list of things. We have to make sure that the artist is set up, the AV is set up. We need to make sure that the catering people are ready for us, that the staff have arrived, that everyone's dressed neatly, that everyone knows what to do, that our date was up, it's been delivered, that everything we've asked for from our suppliers has been done on this date. So this day is chaos. It's chaos because you're running around. They're delivering plates. The AV guy is saying, can we do a sound check? This person's saying, oh, the tablecloths don't reach the ground. They're hanging up. Phone them, get them to exchange them. So you're managing all these things on that day. So the reverse planning is very important because we can work it back to make sure that this day is not a nightmare, that it's actually manageable. Because this day is going to be a challenge whether or not you've planned. It's going to, even if you've planned the last detail, this day is going to be an experience because you have to pull it all together. So the last thing you need is bad planning, because then you just make that day something that an event can't even happen if you haven't planned. Right, so our running orders, what is a running order? That is what I use to give to the crew. So we've got waiters and the catering people, and we've got our AV guys, we've got the people welcoming the guests, we've got a performer. All these people need times that they need certain things to happen. The AV guy needs to know while people are entering and when they're sitting down, we would like some classical music playing in the background, and we would like this to be on the screens. The catering people need to know that at a certain time we have to serve the food. You can't just go to the kitchen and say, okay guys, we're hungry now, and that you can bring the food. How do they prepare? There's 200 people. So they need to know exactly when we're going to serve dinner. The artist needs to know that he's performing straight after dinner. So what we do with the running order is we make a list of times. We plan the event in minutes, half an hour, how it's going to unfold. And then I take a copy of that and I give it to my AV team. I give it to the person who's doing the catering. I give it to the person who's helping in the front so they can answer questions, so that everyone knows exactly what time, when is going to happen. Otherwise, you're going to stand there, all the events are coordinate-ish, and 20 people are going to be like, what time are we eating? What time is this happening? The artist is here, he's not sure what time this is happening. So it's chaos. So the running order helps us and our staff to know that if I follow what is on the sheet, there will always be changes. There's always tiny little changes. But if I follow the sheet, then I'm going to be at the right place at the right time. And that makes your job as the event planner a little bit less, because you've got less things to manage or less questions to ask. Okay, and then another very important part of the event management process is the contracts and the bookings. What we normally do as event coordinators is we are the middlemen. So we have the client, and then the client says we want to do an event. We go to look for a venue. So we sign the contract with the venue. We sign the contract with the artist. We sign the contract with the AV guys. So you have to be very careful to make sure that deposits have been paid. That you're not signing yourself into something and the client hasn't even said yes yet. You know, you need to make sure that everything's done correctly. We need to check that the contracts, we need to actually read the contracts to make sure that whatever we want from the venue or from the artist, that the needs are being met, that they are available on that date. It's a way to also make sure that everyone knows what is expected of them. But there's a big section that we'll cover later on with regards to contracts and bookings. So this section, it might look like it's only a couple of points, and you might think like that's the end. It's not the end. This is an introduction of so many things to come. The planning phase is the important part, because if we can plan it correctly, there will be changes the day before, guaranteed. Clients do that at the last minute, but we will be in a better position to handle the event and to make it a success and to meet the objectives of the client. So that would be the phase 3, the planning phase.